Hey folks, Ryan Smith at Better Life Carolinas. Thought we might take a few minutes to talk about a new test offering that we have here. This is genomics testing. Genomics testing has been around for a while, but the problem that I think a lot of patients and providers have had over the years is that you get a lot of information, but not much of it is terribly actionable. It's kind of the equivalent of buying a cup of coffee and dumping it in your lap. You're not getting any of the benefit, but you're experiencing some of the downside. You might be getting what could be considered pretty bad information, pretty scary stuff, but you don't know what to do about it. The the real advantage to genomics testing, genetic testing, is to be able to act on this information. And that's finally what we're starting to be able to do now. So the ideal situation when it comes to genomics is to not only have information about your DNA, about your genes, but to have an idea of how that information might correlate with your risk for chronic disease or for chronic symptoms, and to have some evidence-based approaches to what you might be able to do about those things. And I've had the good fortune to recently do some training with a company called IntellxxDNA. This company has compiled a database of research that correlates with particular genetic variants. So using this information, we can evaluate not only your genetics, but also come up with the plan for approaching or for dealing with some of the problems that might arise from genetic variants that you may have. So this type of testing really is what we mean when we talk about precision medicine. You might hear the term N of one medicine being thrown about, and what that really refers to is tailoring an approach specifically to a given patient, a given individual, to you. This is different from the conventional approach in medicine where we use evidence gathered from population-based studies and we extrapolate from that evidence what might be the best treatment for the average individual. But we're not all the same. And if we have a blueprint of you, which is what genetics really is, then we can tailor therapy directly to you. And it's so much more precise and so much more effective. That's what this is all about. So how does this all work? Let's go over a hypothetical example. Let's say we have a patient who for years has had difficulty with GI distress. And he knows that it tends to come about after he eats meals, but he can't really isolate a given trigger food. He's not sure exactly what it is in his diet that's causing the problem. But he gets awful GI distress. It's pain and nausea and bloating and a gassy feeling. And it's recurrent. And he has tried all kinds of things to address it. He tried going gluten-free for a period of time. Didn't really make a difference. He's had multiple colonoscopies and endoscopies to see if any answer can be found that way. Nothing has helped. So we performed a genomic analysis, and the way we do that is by providing patients with a kit. The kit includes a cheek swab. You swab the inside of your cheek for about 45 seconds. You place the swab in a vial of liquid and then mail this off to the company. And then about 4 weeks later, we get the results back, and we sit down and have a lengthy discussion about all the information. And it sure is a lot of information, there's no doubt about it. But we really try to focus on the issues that are most problematic for an individual. So it turns out that for our hypothetical patient, he happens to have two variants, two copies of a variant in a gene called copper-containing amine oxidase. Let's break that down. When I say that we have two copies of a gene, we each have two copies of the same chromosome, one from mom, one from dad, and there will be a gene on both of those chromosomes from mom and from dad that perform the same function, but those genes might not be exactly the same. They might be a bit different. And that's really what this is all about. Some genes have single changes in the sequence of nucleotides that they consist of that might result in a different protein or enzyme or receptor. And if an individual happens to have two copies of a variant in a given gene, a variant from mom and a variant from dad, then they might experience symptoms or problems or a disease related to that. And it turns out that our hypothetical patient with the GI distress has two variants in this one gene that codes for an enzyme called copper-containing amine oxidase. Now that's a mouthful, but that enzyme, copper-containing amine oxidase, is involved in the breakdown of histamine in the gut. If you happen to eat food that contains a lot of histamine, this enzyme helps to break that down, metabolize it so that that histamine does not cause a problem. Histamine, if left alone, can cause issues with an inflammatory type reaction. It might cause bloating, it might cause GI pain, it could cause a lot of the effects that our poor patient has been experiencing. So now we have a genetic explanation that corresponds with our patient's symptoms. What do we do about it? Well, the nice thing about this IntellxxDNA database is that it provides us with a lot of targeted interventions that can help this patient. So we put him on a type of enzyme supplement that he takes in capsule form called diamine oxidase. It's kind of like folks who are lactose intolerant taking lactase. This is the same idea. By taking this enzyme capsule, it's able to help him break down whatever histamine is in his diet. We also can give him a list of foods that commonly contain histamine. Those would be things like aged meat, sausage, fish, fermented foods, champagne. All those contain a lot of histamine. So now he knows common triggers and he can avoid those. And lastly, we can put him on some anti-inflammatory supplements like quercetin or bromelain that help to decrease release of histamine. And all these things together can make a marked difference in someone who has been plagued by years of GI problems. That's one example. If you have ever wondered why your friends eat a keto diet and lose all this weight, and you try it and you don't have any success whatsoever, genomics might help explain that. If you've ever wondered why you have a strong family history of early cognitive decline, genomics can certainly help explain that. If you and your spouse eat the same things, he or she has no problem with their blood sugar, but yours is difficult to manage, genomics might be an explanation. Anxiety, chronic anxiety can really be something that genomics can help shed light on. So if any of these questions have ever come to mind, or if you're interested in learning a bit more about your genetic blueprint, give us a call. We can certainly talk about whether a genomic evaluation might be appropriate for you. Thanks.